Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. It's currently March and it's that big transition out of winter and spring coming up. It isn't quite time to properly get on with everything, but there are actually a lot of quite surprising harvests that you might have in the ground that you might not be making the most of, especially ones that are going to help you cover the hungry gap. I'm also going to talk about key timings in terms of sowing some of your staple crops and some of the jobs that are really important to do during this month. We'll start off in the solar tunnel, and a lot of the winter crops are starting to run to seed. This is a Chinese salad cabbage. It tastes amazing. We can see these little flower heads appearing. Now, flower heads of these brassicas are one of my favourite things about spring and also the hungry gap, because there's a lot of sweetness in the tops of these, and there's a lot of plants that offer these tops that we can enjoy. So even though these are running to seed, you don't get the bitterness in the leaves, they still taste amazing. And these tops are absolutely delicious, whether you want to eat them raw or lightly pan fry them. This part of the solar tunnel smells amazing because this thing is flowering. Can you guess what it is? It's pak choi. And oh, honestly, it smells of summer in here and it looks beautiful. And actually, on a warmer day, hoverflies and bees love going for this kind of brassica flowers. So even though, again, you can eat these tops, these yellow flowers are so delicate and beautiful, and you can use them to decorate some of the salads that you're perhaps making with the end of your winter greens. And I just think that just sometimes letting a vegetable do its thing and observing what happens can yield such beautiful results, and it's very precious to see this kind of colour at the start of March. In March, I like to really gradually ease into seed sowing. My core months for seed sowing are very much April, and I think May is the crescendo of seed sowing for me, because you can start almost everything apart from, say, tomatoes or peppers. It's a bit late for them. So right now we've got these shelving units, we've got lots of peas coming through, we've got lots of onions coming through, we've got some radish, we've got some beetroot, also other things such as some broccoli, just so we can start getting and building up the seedling production, because these onions will be going out in about a week or two. These peas are going to be going into the polycrub and perhaps into here, so we can start getting that nice early harvest of garden peas, which is such a beautiful welcome to a new growing season. This kale plant in front of me here is a red Russian kale, and it's been blown over and blown around because of all of the storms and winds we've been having over winter. But what's happened is that somehow, by going on the side, it has seemed to have shocked it to form a load of shoots coming up. So these are all different flower shoots, and they're all completely edible. You can just chop them up. There's a lot here, and it's quite amazing to see this flourish that has happened from them growing almost on their side. So Sam was saying earlier that what if we actually grew red Russian kale on purpose at an angle like that, so we can both make the most of perhaps pathway space and also have more of that special crop of the kale flowers. And also it looks pretty striking. I love it. It's like a forest of kale shoots. In front of me here are two crops. I've got beetroot. Is actually lasting the winter pretty well. It's bolt hardy. You can eat the leaves of beetroot, but plenty usable. The other thing as well here is swede. Now, I made the mistake of planting them way too close together, thinned them 2 or 3 times, still a bit close, but that's okay, because one of the most valuable greens that you can get from your garden over the hungry gap is swede leaves. Absolutely delicious and actually really productive as well. They send out this amazing fresh flourish. It'll probably start properly in about 2 to 3 weeks, and then once you've enjoyed all of those leaves, again it's something else that flowers, and you can eat the flower shoots. So not only can you eat the roots of swede, you can also eat the leaves and the flower shoots. As a gardener, I'm constantly looking at what do I already have growing that could provide a second or different type of harvest. And one of my favourite recent discoveries is that these beautiful delicate little flowers of rosemary are edible. And if you can just imagine sweetness with rosemary together, that's exactly what these taste like. And they're absolute delicacy at this time of year. I'm here next to the purple sprouting broccoli. This is great because you can also eat the leaves, and I've just been peering through and I can start to see the very first shoots starting to form, and it's quite a cool sight. And these, we've got about 9-10 plants here, are going to be quite a significant part of what I'll be eating over April and May. In front of me here is the garlic bed. There are two varieties, Germiada and Primer. The Primer doesn't look so good. It's got a little bit more of a pale colouring to its leaves, but I'm going to remain optimistic and see how it does. However, the Germiada has this beautiful kind of green sheen to it. There's quite a few there. There's more further down in the garden, and I'm getting really excited for both the normal garlic harvest but also all of the green garlic. And then to the right of me on the subject of garlic is elephant garlic. And I've got here 16 cloves that I've planted out, and they're just poking through. In the polycrub, the elephant garlic there is about this tall and looking quite amazing. And I've also got two really interesting plants growing in here, which we reckon is actually cumin plants that have somehow, the roots have overwintered. And if we're right, and if everything goes to plan, if that cumin flowers and we can get cumin seeds grown in Wales outside, I think that will be a massive success to celebrate later in the season. Something that's been nice all winter and even into nearly mid-March, we've got this fresh flat leaf parsley that's just been going and going and going. It's looking nice and healthy, and it's a great kind of herby flavour that we can enjoy with all of the quite leafy things that are coming into the Hungry Gap. So what I would definitely do is save some of your best parsley plants, leave them in the ground over winter, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy their crops all through that season. I might butcher the name, but this plant next to me is Australian tree cabbage. The official name will be on the video. And this was quite a revelation. It's one of my favourite varieties that I grew last year. I was a bit unsure whether it would overwinter. There was a couple of signs of rot, but it seemed to have broken through that, and you've seen this really kind of lush light green growth, the same colour that it was growing last year. And it is such a sweet, delicious cabbage. It doesn't head. I didn't realise that until it was a bit too late, so I didn't get to enjoy it that much last year. But this year, especially during the Hungry Gap, all of these leaves are coming forward, and I honestly believe that this is going to be one of my core staple brassica varieties that I'm going to grow every single year from this point onwards. In my latest book, one of the topics that I go over is the key crops that I grow for the Hungry Gap, and I'm crouched in front of one right now. This is a cultivated area, although quite wild. It's wild garlic, perhaps one of the most versatile ingredients that you can grow, and it is truly quite magical, and it spreads really rapidly. We started off with around 10 or 20 bulbs, they're just really small bulbs, a few years back, and now it's spread into this amazing carpet of wild garlic that will probably, you know, if nothing changes here, it could outlive me and continue spreading all through this back area, just like those snowdrops started with a few little clumps. Wild garlic is something that you've got to grow, especially in a semi-shaded area. A key crop for me in March is potatoes. However, what I usually do is now just focus on new potatoes and secondaries so I can avoid blight. And then the rest is actually a variety called Sapo Mira that is blight resistant, and I'm really impressed with how it performs. And I actually grow those in containers so I can tip out and harvest them whenever I want over winter. And that's going to be one of my big projects over the next 2 or 3 weeks, is getting all my potato containers sorted so then I have more space opened up in the garden for other crops. For gardeners in temperate climates like here in the UK, having an undercover growing space is absolutely the most precious growing space within the entire garden. It's where you can extend your season in terms of seedlings going outside, but also to grow high value crops that might not do so well outdoors, especially in the cooler areas. Now, one of those high value crops is tomatoes. I like to start tomatoes from around about mid-March. I find if it's any earlier, I'm usually holding on to quite large tomato seedlings, which might risk the chance of getting stressed. I'd much rather, when they get to the right size, transplant them and be happy with them. Because our last frost is usually mid-May, I do kind of err on the side of caution, and I find that anything before March, sowing tomatoes before March, is often a little bit too early. So next week is quite a defining moment of the growing season for me, because it's tomato sowing time. One of the biggest opportunities that you can get from a vegetable garden is the ability to have new flavours and new crops just around the corner, no matter what season it is. So just think carefully as you're planning and planting your garden, what extra crops, even if it's just at the end of a bed or say half a bed, such as purple sprouting broccoli, can you put in to always have that little bit of magic, that anticipation of something really exciting that you can enjoy no matter what month it is.